now. You might have the record approval show up on your screen, and we'll get started. Welcome everybody to the February Focus on Family Consumer Sciences and FCCLA webinar. I cannot believe this is episode 6 of the school year. We don't have very many left together. It's exciting, but it also, I just don't know where the time went. The next screen starts our agenda. There are some updates on the calendar that I'll share. There's some spring reminders that I want to talk about real briefly, and then have an update. And that's going to report some of the exciting partnerships and activities that is being planned for the spring and the summer. So I'll share more about that. Then we have a couple guest speakers with us from AA FCS. Helen comes from us from the East Coast. She is the Associate Director of the American Association of Family Consumer Science Pre-Professional Accreditation and Certification Program, and Dr. Lori Myers is the Senior Director of the program. She's in Louisiana. And so they're both going to come in and talk to us about credentialing, because I've already started some work in some of our universities and two-year programs about looking at and embracing the AAFCS pre-PAC credential as having us recognition at the college level. It is recognized as an industry recognized credential. The AAFCS pre-PAC certifications are. But if we can get them to get the post-secondary areas to embrace them in a way that either provides equal free credit, or which is called articulated credit, or equal a scholarship or entry into a special program that's happened in other states. I'd really like to see that happen in Montana, just so we're able to provide more opportunities for our students to have more benefit if they want to move their education forward. And then we'll end with FCCLA update. And Tracy has some slides that she's going to share with us today. So just as always, if you have any topics or content areas that you want me to explore and add in a future webinar, just add that in the chat box, or you can send it to me as an email, and I'll make sure that we address those. To date, I haven't had anyone submit any topics. So I just go with what I know is most current and what I think is relevant based on conversations I've had with you all off and on in the field, or things that I've read that you've posted on your Facebook chapter, FCCLA posts, or things like that. So the calendar, everything in the pink that you see is new, mainly in April. And so there's a Science in Food and Flavorings virtual training webinar. I'm so excited to bring to you. That comes from Chicago. The FONA group, which used to be called, it used to stand for Food of North America. FONA. They just go by the acronym now. They were bought by McCormick Spices. And it's all about how flavorings are used to enhance our food. And so they have a trainer who actually has family consumer science education background. She is a dietitian by trade, and then went in to get her master's in education in FCS. So she is very willing and interested in doing a 3-hour training. We have the 5th of April tentatively targeted right now in the morning. She's verifying some things on her end. She said she could do a number of trainings for us, and I asked her to do one on food and flavorings and kind of introduce the industry of food science and what kind of careers there are. And she's actually going to do some exploration in Montana to share what companies in Montana use their flavorings. There'll be a box of materials that will be sent to each of the participants. She's trying to get some additional funding to cover the postage. There might be a little bit of postage cost to get the box sent to you, but I've attended a training by her. Happens to be the same woman. She remembered me. We had this conversation, and we think it was 2016. with COVID, you kind of lose track of everything those years. But she's very interested in bringing this training to us. It's going to be very hands-on, lots of activities that you can do in a nutrition class or culinary class. Middle school and or high school would be appropriate to introduce food science in a different way and look at opportunities within that field. There's a pre-conference I mentioned. I'll talk more about that in a little bit on the 19th, which is the first day of the Montana affiliate, FCS affiliate spring conference in Whitefish, and there's the link. I reviewed the agenda that was recently released, and it is going to be so good. They've got industry tours. The speakers have a real range, but very relevant and current. And I'm already looking at them thinking, I don't know which one I'm going to go to because I want to go to so many of them that are in conflict, but note that. Also note in March as well as April, there's other dates, and in particular when the webinars are. May, June, and July, those really haven't changed in the past. I'm going to talk about a few of the things that are happening in June. June 5th through the 7th is a culinary immersion in Flathead Valley Community College. I say it's tentative, but it's pretty well a done deal that it's happening. The dates are what the tentative is. They're looking at other things happening on campus. And I know anybody who attended the immersion last year, it's going to be similar. It's going to be changed a little bit, but it's going to be very similar. And it was very highly considered very highly rewarding to attend that. There will be a fee to attend, but I know that what they are putting into this is much more than what your registration fee will be as far as actual food costs and the experiences and the training you'll have. It's an actual deep dive into techniques used in the culinary lab and including some baking and pastry. And there's a few other things I'll talk about too. I want everyone to remember that there is a Google site and you can search for it by just putting in Montana FCS Network and on the opening page, which is what this will be when you get to that section. You'll have the landing page. You'll have some statistics as they come, they develop, and as I get more statistics and value of what we do in the field. So you'll have that to reference when you market your program. Then there's some general definition of what is FCS in Montana. And then we have a short video that's actually a promotional. So you could show that with the direct link right there on this front page if you wanted to show what is FCS and the value of FCS education in schools. I think it's about 3.5 minutes long. The pathway, or excuse me, the calendar, which I have here that I update to share with you each month, is accessed along the top menu bar. You can access the FCS pathways there as well as and the code and that the pathway design sheets, the program of work, in other words, and then there's also a way you can find the code and descriptions right on that webpage. Oops. And then there's the other two things that I didn't identify. Sorry, if I go back, there it is. That's also along there is resources, and the resources will be is the area that you'll have access to a number of partners both in state and in the national level with teaching resources, videos, podcasts, lesson plans. And please check that out. That's also where you'll find AAFCS has a link on there as having supporting materials. The national FCS standards can be accessed through that portal. And then all sorts of links, including to FONA, if you want to see more in general what they have to offer you. It says upcoming FCCLA, MAFCS, and MTFCSE, looking at linking those web pages on this front page. We're still in the process of determining if that will be something that's user-friendly for those particular entities, but at the very minimum, we will have a link that will take you directly to those sites, so you don't have to bookmark those. You can just go to the one site if you feel like you want to do it that way. As far as a reminder, the pre-conference that's in Whitefish, it starts at 12:30 and runs until 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon. We're going to look at the framework that I'm drafting. You'll be the first ones to see it, offer your input. It will provide standards as a suggestion, just as a framework. These are not requirements, but when someone says, what does it mean to teach this particular pathway or FCS, this is what they can go to this document. It'll have equipment needs. It'll have credentials identified. It'll show how middle school crosswalks to pathways and that sort of thing. And in addition, I'm adding a section on the legislative session and what some of the results have been. And what it might mean to impact FCS education. And one place in particular that I know there'll be some changes is to the financial literacy components of our educational requirements for graduation in Montana. And so I want to review resources. I have 3 full pages of resources that I've been able to locate. And I want to walk through those and show you what's there so you have an idea if you want to expand and get some other ideas. As well as there's one of the pieces of legislation is defining what financial literacy means. And so that could be we need to go back and reflect and make sure that we're covering all the areas that has been decided that should be part of that concept. And then I'm going to do more of a deep dive on the Google site itself that I just mentioned before, so you can see where everything is. I think I might turn that into a game type setting where you have to go and find it, kind of like you do when you go to an FCCLA website, like you do with your students. Reminder, when you're planning courses for next year, to review the pathway design sheets, the program of studies, on the course coding that's used, and ensure that you're coding things to show that sequence of courses, and really encouraging everyone to include that work-based learning component, either within one of the classes or as a standalone class. As far as the FCS opportunities, I'm pretty excited about. I'm going to run through these. There'll be a few pages for each one. And so if we need to at the end, if we have any time left, we can go back and revisit. But one of the first ones is a pilot option. Active Learning Labs was a group that I was introduced to by Mary Ellen Einhart, who works with the Department of Labor and Career Lab. And this was developed by someone that she knew, a colleague that she had, who felt that it was appropriate to develop some high quality school-based interaction simulations to teach different business topics. And so we were introduced to each other and we talked a little bit, and he was sharing some of the opportunities that he had. And I said, well, you know, some of these I think could really align well with our culinary business topics. And so what I'm about to share with you is really written kind of for the junior high, middle school level, but I do think it wouldn't be a bad idea to think about how these might fall in with your secondary programs, especially in your foundational coursework that's in the hospitality and tourism culinary pathway. What he and I had described and decided we would do is set up a pilot program. So I'm looking at 3 to 5 teachers that will volunteer to actually teach and use these business simulations in the classroom, and then offer some input on how it works. I understand what the Active Learning Lab Corporation or company is looking to do next step is to solicit some in-state corporate sponsors to bring this free for all FCS classrooms. But the first step is to get input from you as teachers to see if it's valuable and you think it would add to your programming. So there's 3 components. There's an economic active learning sheet with activities. And then there's 2 simulations where the students would employ those concepts that they learn in the economic introduction. And one's called Cookies Inc. and the other one is called Snack Stand. And so I'm going to go to the next page because I talk more in depth here. The active learning sheets assist the students with basics of economics, especially as it relates to business. And they'll be applying those in the next 2 simulations. There's 5 activities that are part of the active learning sheets. And it's looking at things like basic nutrition, needs and wants, and then some basics in business practices. Then once they understand what those concepts are, it would be applied in Cookies Inc., which is a business simulation. The students are running a small cookie cart. They analyze the ingredients and the ratios and convert units of measure and calculate costs to learn important math and business concepts as they run their pop-up shop. And then the second one is a snack stand. And this is on an entrepreneurial venture in which there's a snack stand, obviously, in a virtual event, a family fun day. And so they have to plan what food they're going to prepare, how much food they're going to prepare, and then things happen to them. So that the crowd might not be as much as they wanted to, and how they're going to increase their bottom line by making sure they're selling their food products. So that's roughly what that pilot is. I'm looking for 3 to 5 teachers. Part of what I sent earlier, and I'm going to resend again after this is over, is an interest survey, and you can sign up if you want to be a pilot. There's no cost to you. There is the only cost would be some time. There's a small training the first week of March, and then hoping that individuals can teach the and include the simulations. There are a number of lesson plans that come with each of those. I think it's 4 45-minute lesson plans for each of those simulations. So it's not a whole lot of time. It might just give you a little bit of a spring uplift in your interest in teaching. And but if you're interested, please reach out, because I really don't want to encourage the business partnerships that they're going to solicit to get funding to bring this free to all of our teachers if you don't feel that it's going to be of value to our teachers. So thank you for those of you that might volunteer. The next one is starting a Montana State Action Team to work on a Say Yes to FCS campaign. I'm really concerned about our school. We have schools that would reopen their programs in a heartbeat, but they don't have FCS teachers. And so what can we do to embrace who we have, but going through our programming and support those going through to get a degree, but how can we also embrace individuals coming to us in alternative ways? How can we market ourselves? How can we embrace them? How can we provide them what they need? So again, in that interest survey, I'm asking for people to volunteer. And we're basically going to build our action plan off of the National Partnership website that has 3 components: recruit, prepare, and support. And there's already materials developed. There's already workshop materials, lesson plans written, marketing pieces, podcasts that we can watch and learn more and gather some things. There's some PSAs, there's some news releases if we want to do that, social media campaigns. It's all there. I just need to have some people that are willing to sit down and kind of come up with a plan of how we want to promote FCS. So our FCS education. So that's called a state action team. That's what this national partnership to recruit, prepare, and support family consumer science education is asking states to create. Here's more about the science of food and flavors that I was talking to you about. There's the link there at the top of this slide to what they do, but it's very strongly food science. The training itself will be a modified version of their Flavor 101 training. So when you get something like Doritos, and it has a nacho cheese flavor, how do they create the flavor of nacho cheese? Well, they use flavorings. And so one of the things that you're going to be experiencing is to receive bottles of flavorings. Now, most of flavor is smell. So you don't actually eat these items. You actually take the smell and create smells using the scents that they send you, and to create some different smells to see if you can recreate, what does apple smell like if you don't have apple? Well, you can use their materials to recreate that aroma, which is linked then with flavors. And that's how that's connected. So there'll be hands-on labs. There'll be additional classroom resources to introduce food science careers to middle school as well as high school students. So I think it'd be exciting to see that. I ask also if we could have a walkthrough of their website. Their podcasts are really cool because there are people talking about the industry and solving problems in the industry when it comes to new flavors and creating new food products. What they see is trends coming up, as well as how do you develop a new product. In June, there is a fashion industry immersion in New York City. It's put on by a group called Windowsware. And they have a very intensive 3-day immersion for teachers to attend. You can see the top of this slide has the windowsware.com link. And there's highlights that what's included. So you'll see the business side, the marketing side, the branding side of the industry, and also the design side, but looking at design from putting together a line, not so much the sewing side, but how do you make your bottom line make sense? So this is a picture of one of the immersions that was attended in the past. This was one from Kansas. Took some teachers there. I am trying to find some funding to offset some of the costs, but they do have something this summer. If you want to go to their Windowsware website, scroll clear down to the bottom of the opening page, you'll see a place that says conference, and then you'll find the link, which is a link that looks like this, and they have like a 2-minute review of what you'll experience when you're in NYC. So I do encourage it. It's wonderful experience, and it will change how you teach fashion and apparel. I will guarantee you. So with that, we're going to go on now to FCS credentialing. And I know I saw Helen pop on as we got started. So welcome, Helen. And I'm sure Lori is there too. So thank you, Lori, for being here. But the credentialing itself, I want to start a little bit. I went to ACTE and found out that when we're talking about credentials versus certificates and certifications or earning a license or degree, what we're really talking about is industry recognized credentials. Now, when we say credentials, you need credentials. This is what they're talking about, is industry recognized. And that is a credential that's either sought or accepted by industry or is endorsed by a nationally recognized organization or trade association with significance in an industry. And that's what AAFCS is. They are a national organization with significance in the industry and have worked with business and industry to bring credentials into FCS, especially the areas that don't have a credential per se that we normally recognize. So I'm not going to review this slide because I want to give Lori and Helen more time. But I did take our pathways here in Montana, and I listed what the commonly industry credentials are that are accepted across the United States. And there's a number of AAFCS options that we can pick from. So we'll talk more about that at the conclusion of the presentation. So with that, I am going to introduce our two presenters. I'm going to let them talk a little bit more about their background while I transition from my PowerPoint to their PowerPoint. So with that said, Helen or Lori, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please do. And I'm going to stop sharing this and pull up your PowerPoint.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gayla, for having us join your call this afternoon. I'm Dr. Lori Myers. I serve as Senior Director for Credentialing, Education, and Research at AAFCS. And have had the opportunity to be in the classroom, both at the middle school, secondary, and post-secondary levels before coming to AAFCS. And I came to AAFCS specifically to work on industry credentials for students. So I'm very excited to be here with you this evening to share more about the pre-professional credentials that are offered by AAFCS, which is the national umbrella organization for family and consumer sciences. I am joined by Helen Fuqua, so I'm going to let her introduce herself before we begin our PowerPoint.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to join you this evening. My name is Helen Fuqua, and I am the Associate Director of Credentialing Programs. Prior to joining FCS, I worked as the State FCS Specialist for the Commonwealth of Virginia. So Gayla and I have worked together for a number of years. I worked extensively with FCS and credentialing for our FCS programs. And prior to that, I was a high school teacher for 26 years.
So thank you so much, Helen. So Gayla, if you'll go ahead and start our presentation. As Gayla mentioned, we're going to talk about our pre-professional credentials that are offered by FCS. As you can look at how they can be a pathway to career success for your students. So if you'll go to the next slide, and Gayla has already mentioned the definition for an industry recognized certification.
Is this the right slide?
It is. If you'll go to the next slide, it's still on the first one.
Okay, so it's changing for me. So let me stop sharing and then I'll come back in. Okay, do you see Foundation for Development?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So awesome, okay. Awesome.
Is this where we need to be?
So if you'll go back a couple of slides. There we go. Let's go there. So you have already shared the definition of an industry recognized credential, but do want to point out that based on the definition that's provided in the Perkins legislation, the FCS assessments and certifications do meet this definition as an industry recognized credential because they are endorsed by the recognized organization for the profession. So we are very excited to have the FCS pre-professional assessments and certifications, what we refer to as pre-PAC. So if you go to the next slide, Gayla, this kind of gives you an overview of the pre-PAC program. All of our assessments are competency-based assessments. So we'll talk a little bit more about those competencies in a moment, but it is a third-party exam, and that really brings some validity to the assessment. I'll talk a little bit about how the assessments and credentials were developed using industry and content standards, how they went through a rigorous pilot testing to ensure that they were psychometrically sound, which means you'll get reliable, valid results. They're used in a variety of different settings, and earning a qualifying score on the assessment then results in a corresponding industry credential for your students. So if you go to the next slide, I do want to share a little bit about how the assessments were developed. We wanted to make sure that as the assessments were designed to prepare students for the workforce, that industry standards were being included. So the industry standards are at the very foundation of all of the competencies for the assessment. We also wanted to make sure that the competencies on the assessment and certification also aligned with the national standards for family and consumer sciences, as well as the national career clusters and the essential knowledge and skill sets that are associated with those career clusters. Not only did we want to make sure that these were provided the strong foundation for the assessment and certification, but we also wanted to make sure that our assessments and certifications aligned with national initiatives. And so if you look at the next slide, it does share with you all of the correlations that our assessment competencies address. So the 21st century skills, the national employability framework, as well as the career technical core, the career ready practices. So you can find on our website an alignment matrices, which shows how our assessment competencies match up to all of these national initiatives. In developing those assessments, then we wanted to make sure to have a strong portfolio of products in family and consumer sciences. And so I'm going to turn it over to Helen as we move to the next slide to talk about the different credentials that we offer.
So as you look at the slide and read the name of the 12 credentials that we offer, I want you to think about the courses that you teach And do you identify credentials that would relate to courses that you currently teach? And I'm assuming also that you group your courses so that you have completer sequences. And so some of these assessments might be excellent matches for your completer sequences. A couple to highlight: the leadership essentials. As a part of our family and consumer sciences instruction, we incorporate the student organization, FCCLA, and the leadership essentials would be an excellent way of measuring the students' growth in leadership. Another credential that's used a lot in states is personal and family finance. Many states have personal and family finance graduation requirements in place, and I do not know if that's true for Montana, but that's another one to highlight. So think about the courses that you teach and the completer sequences that you have in place, and look over the list of the 12 assessments that are available and see which ones would work for your particular needs in your school. And the process for implementing the assessments only requires 5 steps. So it starts off with a simple Google form that you fill in to apply to be a test site. And then within 3 days, we'll send your test site approval. And then you can purchase your products and register your students. We have a handbook that gives you step-by-step instructions for administering the assessments. And then you can access your data reports, and you can use those data reports to help you inform your instruction and make decisions about any adjustments of what you need to reteach, identify what the students are doing exceptionally well. And then when the students earn their certification, you can also print off a certificate for them at the time that they complete the assessment.
If we can move to the next slide. Tonight was meant to just be an overview of our credentials that we offer as you think about preparing your students for college and career success. And we try to think about the R's. We hear the 3 R's sometimes, but I want to share with you and end with how pre-pack is relevant to what you are teaching in your classroom. They are reliable. Having undergone rigorous pilot testing, we know it provides reliable and valid results. The assessments have 3 different levels of cognitive difficulty, so we know that they are a rigorous assessment for your students. It's results oriented, being able to use the assessment data to inform instruction, to look at performance growth. The results can be used in a variety of different ways. And they're industry recognized. And it is a recognized way that you can help your students validate their knowledge and skills. So as we move to that last slide that has some information, our contact information on there, we do want you to feel like you can say yes to success, and the road to success for your career pathways ends with AAFCS. And we believe that the pre-pack program is one that will allow you and your students to experience success for the workforce and for your particular program. So again, we wanted to just provide an overview for you this evening. If we have a little bit of time, we can answer questions, Gayla, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to share even more information about the pre-pack program at a later date.
Wonderful. So does anybody have any questions about credentialing in general or anything about the pre-pack? How many of you knew about it or are interested in maybe doing a pilot with some of this? I know some states have done that where they've worked out a deal with AAFCS and created some free assessments or administrations is what they call it with AAFCS, and so you could give it to students and then see what you think, the ease of giving it, any benefit to you as a teacher. So I'm going to open it up and let you all have a discussion about it.
What does the cost generally run when you do have to purchase the materials?
So the assessment in the state of Montana would be $25 for what we call a single administration. So that's per student. But we also offer, that's a one-time test administration. but we also offer a retest package that's $40 currently. And that gives each student 2 administrations that you can use for pre and post testing to look at performance growth, or some schools use it as a diagnostic tool. So we're looking at $25 to $40 per student.
Mhm.
And at the federal level, it is Perkins eligible for funding.
Mhm. Yeah, I was going to share that. Also, some of you, before we go on a little further, since we talked about assessments right away, there is some discussion on the Hill about some funding streams that would increase work-based learning opportunities for students, and it also included earning credentials. So there could be some additional funding coming that would underwrite this. And I do know too, and Lori, I verified this with her before, if you as a state, if we could pre-purchase a large quantity, it would decrease the cost. And so then your school would just contact, like me, for instance, I'm just assuming, you know, the system will be more difficult. It always is when you work with state government, but basically whoever houses this group of administrations, you would contact and you would say, I need 3 early childhood and I need 2 fashion apparel and I need 1 broad field FCS. So you don't have to like pre-purchase a whole group of just the same one. And the other piece is they never expire. So if you would find out that you have enough funding to purchase 25 and you only need 5 this year, you would have the remaining 20 to use in years to come. So some certifications are not like that. You have to pre-order, and how do you know how many you're going to need and in what areas, and they expire in a certain amount of time. But AAFCS has been very open to listening to state administrators, state specialists, and say, okay, we want to see this happen. We want to bring this as an option, but here's some things we have to do. If we have quantity purchases, we really would like to, you know, see that the price might be able to be decreased and that there's a longer date so there's not an expiration for these and those types of things. So they've been very, very open and to talk with all of us. And I know Helen can attest to that too, when she was in her role as a state specialist. And to put things in perspective, a student that earns a CDA, Child Development Associates, or wants to work toward that, that's over $300 for that certification. And I know the welding and some of the construction ones are $80 to $100 also. To put it in perspective. But I mean, it is funding, it is money, and I'm looking on my end what I can do to help us meet some of those. If you all are interested, I'm trying to obtain some funding to do like a pilot and try to get 5 or 6 schools, 10 schools that would want to give administer the test, just as a way to learn more about it. That's what I did in my previous job, and it worked successful. We did what do we do? A 6-hour training, Lori, where we actually walk through how do you read it and how do you give the test and what does the results mean? And it was very helpful, I think, for those who participated to walk through so they could get the true value of the credential for themselves and their own teaching style. Other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Lori and Helen.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So my question is pertaining to the pilot program for the culinary business simulation.
Mm-hmm.
At what level, in terms of students, is this for intro to FACS? Is this for advanced foods, or it has to be for culinary students?
No, it could be for any type of student you want to introduce to culinary business concepts. And that's what the pilot test is for you all to then determine and help me guide where you think it best fits. Right now, we're opening it up to junior high, middle school, and high school, so that we can see how you feel like it fits for your programming. So just sign up, Renique, and you could be one of those people to tell us what you think.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're ready for Tracy to share her slides and do a presentation. I have it Tracy, where it's allows for multiple sharing of slides, or if you want me to share, I can pull that up too.
Go ahead, and if you don't mind to share, Gayla,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I'll
go
let you do the clicking and I'll do the talking. How about that?
Okay, well, I don't have those downloaded, so let me pull that up while we're talking. I'm going to minimize all this and pull up. So go ahead and start some of the conversational points you want to make, and I'll get this pulled up shortly.
Sure. So I have to find it too. Montana FCCLA updates for February. The statistics slide. I'll go ahead and share screen. I found mine, Gayla. Is
Oh,
that
okay.
okay?
That'd
got
be
it.
wonderful. Thank you.
If I can, I think I got it. Here we go.
There you go.
Now it's taking its time with me. Here we go. So I was really excited to share this with you guys. Things are moving up for us. We've got 871 affiliated members right now and another 105 that are marked pending. So that puts us almost at the 1,000 mark, and I'm really excited about our growth in that direction. We also ended up with a couple of new FCCLA chapters already this year, and we have 501 registered for the State Leadership Conference. So that's pretty exciting stuff. I won't bore you with numbers every single time, but I wanted to share that progress with you guys. And I saw Adele was on here. She's really probably more of an expert on this topic than I am. There's a bill right now in the House of Representatives, and the proposed version of it, tell me if I'm wrong, Adele, but I think it's $1 million of funding to be divided evenly among all 7 CTSOs in Montana.
It's almost $1 million more than what we're getting now. So it's
Right.
the whole thing is $1.5 million, and we're at 500,000 and some change between all of us right now.
And so you can imagine how significant that would be. I mean, we're already growing, giving all the constraints that we have on our funding, but I can't even imagine all of the things that we could offer with a huge increase in funding. So I wanted to just make sure that it's on your radar that that's happening. And I just got an email from Lindy this afternoon that's got a template and some talking points. And so I'll be sending that to all the FCCLA advisors in Montana, either this evening or in the morning. So if you have a minute to send an email or two and help your representatives maybe understand how much that could be helpful for Montana FCCLA, we would certainly appreciate the help on that. Adele, did you want to add anything else there?
Just, it is really short. I think they give you 1,250 characters, and that includes spaces and punctuation. So it really does not need to be a thesis. It just needs to be short. And I think from the advisor's perspective, that being able to explain why we need more funding. When we were there for the rotunda, it seemed like in general, legislators support CTE, but I don't know that they understand why we need more money or why it should be divided evenly. So if you as advisors could touch on that, and if you've got students, parents, business partners that would be willing to just send letters of support, even if it's just about how wonderful we are, I think that would be helpful as well. But they're hoping it goes to the House floor this week, so we need to do it as quickly as possible.
Yep. So watch your email, like I said, and I'll have something to you guys either this evening or early in the morning. Just a couple of quick reminders about State Leadership Conference. I know our registration is closed already, but I wanted to explain a couple of the things we have in place, just to kind of make things a little better for the students. We will be providing tickets for all of our session presenters and exhibitors. And so the more a student's interacting, maybe demonstrating some positive leadership skills, the more tickets they're going to get. And those tickets will get the student's name and school written on the back, and then we'll drop those into a prize drawing. And we'll be giving away some pretty nice prizes during the conference. There's also a goose chase app with kind of a digital scavenger hunt that will be going on during the conference as well. So lots of options to win some prizes, especially if we can step up the engagement a little bit. And speaking of engagement, you can earn your swag bag for your chapter service projects. The requirements there include submitting your service hours and emailing 3 to 5 photos of your chapter service projects in action. I think we had a deadline of March 1st on that. So that way we have a few minutes to figure out exactly who's supposed to pick up their swag bag at conference registration. And it has some interactive goodies that I think the students are going to enjoy during some of the sessions. Couple more conference reminders. If you haven't already completed your advisor role survey, that helps us determine the best place for you to volunteer while at the conference. And if you have to change the type of participation for a student, there's also a change form on the conference webpage. And just one more real quick reminder, Thursday is when we will have the culinary events, and some of those are starting in the morning. If you have a student registered for that, kind of be watching your email, probably around March 2nd or so. We will be checking in with you and letting you know what time your student needs to be there. The welcome general session and awards competition, awards results are announced each evening. We'll have some on Thursday for Thursday's events, and then all the other competitions we have on Friday. So we'll be making those results Friday evening. And the schedule will be coming out probably the end of next week. So that way you have some more details. Also happening next week is another FCCLA webinar. This one's a little bit different. We're going to call it Show and Tell. And I've got a few advisors who've already promised that they will bring some goodies to share. And so if you have some great ideas, or even just some ideas that you like, all right, bring those along and share. Somebody else might really like those things, and you might get some good ideas as well. I believe I sent that link out yesterday in your email, and I also put it on the Montana FCCLA Advisor Facebook page. And I went kind of fast, but I didn't want to take your time. You guys are probably ready to leave school at this point, huh? Anybody have any questions for me? All right.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your sharing the information that you had about FCCLA and the contest coming up and the event. The last slide that I had, I'm hoping you can see this, is just, I know it's late, but happy Valentine's Day. It is February, and there's our contact information, both Tracy and myself. Appreciate, we both do, your attending today and being a part of the webinar. We do try to include new and relevant things. I always try to include some reference materials or new teaching ideas, or have a special presenter that's presenting something to kind of broaden your understanding of what's available. So that ends our webinar. And so if you have any other questions, this is the time. Otherwise, thank you so much for spending an hour with us today. I hope you find that it was beneficial. And like I said, this is recording. So this will be on the YouTube channel, and it's accessed through the Google site under resources. You'll see where it says YouTube webinar access. So you'll be able to rewatch this if you want to, and learn, review some of the things that I talked about, and that Tracy talked about, and what Lori and Helen shared. So thank you very much. I sure appreciate you being here. You have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Hey, Gayla, can you explain a little bit more about the culinary immersion at Flathead?
Yes, I sure can. Anybody who wants to stay on, I'm going to stop the recording.